welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sarah Schultz. I am a realtor in the Northern Nevada market, serving Reno, Sparks, Carson City, all the surrounding areas, and I'd love to be of service to you if you're in the market. On today's video, I thought it would be helpful to give you some do's and don'ts of buying new construction. If you've been following me for a while, I've talked about new construction. Some things have changed. I thought it would be helpful to give you a 2025 update. With that, obviously, rates are still higher than we would like to see. It's continuing to make affordability a challenge for buyers, but one good thing about new construction is that they often offer incentives that make it a little bit easier. They'll sometimes give you between $5,000 and $25,000 worth of concessions that you can then use to buy down your interest rate, make your monthly payments a little bit more doable. But that's not without cons. So I'm going to dive into all of that right now. Don't you go anywhere. All right. I'm feeling like a ray of freaking sunshine right now. So let's start with the positives. Let's start with the do's, okay? First and foremost, and I know this sounds really biased being that I'm a realtor, but the first do of buying new construction is hiring your own realtor. So whether or not you guys understand this, the sales team that works in the sales office, like at a production builder, for example, like Toll Brothers, Genuine Communities, which is a local production builder, Lennar, D.R. Horton. We've got so many, Artisan, Desert Wind Homes, all of those communities that are kind of in our market. They all have a sales office and they are staffed during business hours. I say business hours if you didn't know. New construction offices are sometimes only open from noon to 5. What a life. Anyway, I digress. Those sales agents who work in those offices are actually there to work on behalf of the builder. So let me reframe this in a way that might make more sense. If you were buying a resale home, right? Like just a normal home, there's a seller, there's a buyer, you are up against the seller party, right? Essentially. And so it's kind of the same relationship. The builder in this case is the seller. Even though they're building the home and trying to make it to your liking, they're still, they have their own ROI to protect. They're watching their numbers. They're running a business, right? So they want to get the most out of you that they can. The sales agent in that office is there to make sure that that happens. So when you go in there without your own agent to protect you, you are at risk of paying more than you necessarily have to, of not getting certain things that you didn't know you should ask for, etc. So my main takeaway from this is go ahead and hire your own agent. It used to be that it didn't cost you anything. We can't say that anymore because now you're going to have a buyer rep agreement. But in our market, typically, most builders are still paying at least something to the buyer's agent. Whether or not your agent's going to take that as their full compensation is really between you and your agent. But for the most part, it's either not going to cost you anything or whatever it will cost you is going to be so well worth it because you're going to be getting so much more out of the builder. The next do I have for you for buying new construction is to have a third-party inspector inspect your home before it's complete. And some builders have kind of cracked down on this. There is one production builder in our market who will allow you to conduct an inspection, but the inspectors can't bring a ladder. They can't turn anything on. They can't really touch anything. So they've kind of done some gatekeeping when it comes to having an inspection before closing. That said, almost all builders have a warranty. So fit to finish basically means everything. It's going to cover everything in your new construction home. And usually that warranty is either 1 year or 2 years. So what they'll tell you is that your 10th or 11th month before that warranty expires, that's the time to do your inspection. And that's the time to submit all your requests while the home is still under warranty. And you know what? I don't disagree. I say actually though, because of some of these builders and some of their timelines for actually completing repairs, I'm of the opinion that it is well worth it to do both. Have the inspection done before you close and have the inspection done again before your warranty expires. Because you know what? You're going to have two different sets of requests, right? Like after living in the home for 11 months, there are going to be things that you're going to want to have repaired, and you're not going to want to live a whole year in your house with stuff that wasn't right from the beginning. My next do for buying new construction in 2025 is to do your research. Do your due diligence. Research the builder. Look at reviews. Talk to your agent who's protecting your interests, not their interests. Ask them, what was your experience like the last time you worked with them? Have you ever worked with them? And if they say no, that shouldn't be a reason not to work with an agent, because usually the process for working with builders is similar across many communities. Maybe ask your agent if they have other clients or other even agents in their office who have worked there. Ask people firsthand, what was it like? What were some red flags? What are things that I should get ahead of with this builder? What is your strategy for getting the most out of this? That's an important question to ask too, because you never know until you ask what you can actually get. My next item on the do's list is to do your research also about upgrades, options, and hidden costs, because what builders like to do is they like to throw up renderings of what a home may look like, and they like to throw a base price sticker on it. What they don't tell you is that the base price doesn't include any of the fun things, any of the fancy upgrades, the bells, the whistles, the nice countertops, the LVP flooring instead of the carpet flooring, all of that. All of those things have costs associated with them. And I can tell you one statistic in our market that is kind of, known is that the average, this isn't even the high end, the average Toll Brothers consumer spends roughly $175,000 on upgrades. So, just be discerning when you walk through model homes, because let me tell you, those homes are by design amazing. They are so, so beautiful, and every detail is like aesthetically pleasing. Every texture, every color, like everything that you could want is in them, because it makes you feel compelled to want to buy that house, right? The thing that they don't tell you is that those homes in the models sometimes have not only hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of upgrades in them, but they also sometimes have things you can't even buy. And, I like to pick on Toll, but I mean, they do make a beautiful product, but they're probably in our market the most guilty of putting things in their model homes that is not for sale. My next do for buying new construction in 2025 is to check in regularly. Do walkthroughs regularly. You do typically sign a release saying that you can't go there unannounced. The excuse they give you is it could be a hard hat area, it could be unsafe. Okay, sure, that's probably not completely untrue. However, I do think there is a level of gatekeeping that happens. So they want to be prepared. They need to be notified formally. You need to make an appointment to come do a walkthrough. But fine, go ahead, do it. Make an appointment. If you know you're coming to town, you know you're building a house, you want to get an update, you let them know and do it. Do it regularly, because I have seen some things where there were some unpleasant surprises, and if somebody's not overseeing all that and you're getting further and further, way back when we did the framing, they missed X, Y, and Z, and now I can't have a bathtub where I thought I could, just things like that. Like, you want to be very involved and very hands-on, even though you're not the one physically building the home. Like, you want to go in and check, or if you have an agent, you want to be sending them out there to check. And my final do for new construction in 2025 is do research and lock in your rate wisely. Interest rates fluctuate, right? Like, every day they're somewhat different, even if it's only a fraction of a percentage. And you're going to have timelines wherein you can and where you have to lock in your rate by certain deadlines. So you're going to want to be strategic with that. A private mortgage lender who doesn't work for the builders sometimes is going to be a little bit better about, and I say sometimes for real, some lenders that work in new construction are fabulous, but not all. And some of them have so much volume that it's kind of a quantity over quality thing, at least in my experience. But you want to make sure that you are really watching and have a strategy in place. And what I was getting at is that sometimes a private lender is going to be a little bit better about keeping an eye and calling you and saying, hey, now's the time. Lock this rate in. This is the best it's probably going to be for a while. Tell them up front, hey, I want you to tell me when it's a good time to lock my rate, because even a fraction of a percentage in a mortgage rate can make a huge difference in your monthly payment. Let's talk about some of the don'ts. Dun, dun, dun. The first one kind of goes hand in hand with the do's, as it's like the opposite of what I was saying, but don't waive your inspection. I think a lot of people are under the preconceived notion that new means flawless, and that simply just isn't true. Like, yeah, there shouldn't be a whole lot wrong with it, but you have to keep in mind that these production builders are literally building thousands of homes at once. So They're also working for a builder that is trying to, maximize their bottom line. So a lot of times their timeline is very expedited and things get missed. You've got many hands in the pot. You've got people who, they're going to work all day and when they clock out, they don't really care. So you really need to make sure that you have a third party who is very skilled at looking at homes. I take due diligence very, very seriously, and I can't tell you the number of times where I've seen people think that they're fine just waiving the inspection with new construction and having a whole headache to deal with later. So just don't do it. All right, this is also the converse of one of the do's I said, but don't assume that what you see in the model homes is based on any level of reality. Those are, like I mentioned before, heavily, heavily upgraded, often with items that you can't even purchase if you wanted to. Some communities have like a plaque near the entrance of the model home that tells you what is included, what is something that you can't buy, but not all. So it's definitely worthwhile to ask up front, like before you go in and get blindsided by how insanely beautiful they are. Ask up front before you go in, what's included standard? Can I see your standard tile, your standard carpet, your standard cabinet and countertops? Those are the 4 big ones that you get to choose in new construction. So just maybe even like look at those first, snap some pictures so that as you're walking through the model home, you can say, oh, that like beautiful tile backsplash, that's not what this is gonna look like. This is what it's gonna look like. Make sure you have a frame of reference and you're really clear before you go in. This next one is one where a knowledgeable agent in your corner can really help, but don't skip reading the fine print, okay? These contracts that builders have are written to protect them. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is like in the resale business, right? Like somebody owns a home, they go to sell it, somebody buys it. That's a resale, not a new construction home. Those contracts that we use in our MLS are standard, right? They're the same for every property. We use them every day. We are very familiar with them. But builder contracts, new construction homes, they typically require that we use their forms. And this is on purpose. It's, they're written to protect them. They're not standard contracts. Make sure your agent is very competent because the contract that you are signing is not something that they're likely to be reading every single day, unlike our MLS forms. My next don't for new construction in 2025 is don't delay design and finishing selections. And actually, let me just make this even more broad. Don't skimp on your timelines, right? Don't miss your deadlines for things, because if you don't choose, a lot of times contracts will have a clause that says, if you don't choose in time, we're going to choose for you. And what's the point of buying and building a brand new home if you're not actually making your selections that you like and want, right? So make sure you really clarify those deadlines. And actually, when I sit down in a sales office with my buyers and with the sales agent, I always say one of my first questions is, can we get a breakdown of the timeline? Can we get a breakdown of deadlines? And they'll usually be like, well, we don't really know. It's like this vague thing. And you're like, okay, great. Well, I would like a rough estimate, and I would like you to reach out to us at least 2 or 3 weeks prior to each one so that we're all on the same page and we're all doing things the way that they're supposed to be doing. Don't mess up on that, you guys. That's a really big one, because if you miss a deadline, what a lot of buyers don't realize is that new homes have to have permits and they go through all the rigmarole with the city and the county. But then on top of that, all the materials that go into a new home need to be pre-ordered well in advance. All right, last but not least, don't forget to negotiate. And usually if you have an agent in your corner, this heavily falls on their shoulders. But a lot of people don't realize that you can ask for stuff, right? You can tell the builder, well, I like that, but I like it for 10K less. Or I'll make a deal with you, but I want to have, 15K of design studio credit. And sometimes these sales agents, just so you know, they're trained to say no. They're trained to gatekeep. They're trained, as they should be, to protect the builder, right? That's literally their job. So they're gonna give you all kinds of oh, I don't know, I've never heard of that. I don't know if we can really do that. But you know what? You don't know until you ask. And sometimes you have to really insist that they actually put it into their pitch to their boss or higher up or the builder, because I've had people tell me that the answer was probably going to be a no, and then we get a yes. So just don't skimp on negotiating. You don't know until you try, and make sure your agent goes in there ready to fight for you. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you. If you have any other questions about new construction or the home buying or selling process in general, feel free to drop a comment below. Or you can book a free call with me and we can talk one on one. It's no obligation, just a chance to connect, see if we might be a good fit to work together, or at the very least, help you devise a strategy with your next and best steps. There's a link to do that in the show notes below. And if you haven't already, please smash that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and of course, all things to do with buying and selling real estate. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next week.